This is the warm-up. So selfing represents the act of being identified as a self. Yeah. So it's a complete verb. It's not like the act of being identified verb as a self noun. It's a whole verb. Because I humbly don't believe there is a long-lasting, independent, separate entity, a thing. So there's the act of being identified as a self. So that's the whole verb. That's what selfing is. All of the stuff, the memories are used, the thought system are used, feelings are used, actions are used to promote the identification as a long-lasting, independent, separate entity, a thing, yeah? So it's the act of being identified as a self. And the beautiful thing is, it's an activity. For it to seem real, you have to believe it, yeah? Like, we play a huge role in it. There's not, in a sense, what we are, nothing precedes what we are. What's seeing right now is never being seen. It's never going to be seen. What's hearing is never going to be heard. What's feeling is never going to be felt. This is not an experience. This is just a take. You know, you can believe what you want, obviously, but it is not an experience. Yeah? You only have one possibility concerning this, and that is to be it. That's it. There's no other options. You can know what you're not, you can study what you're not, but you cannot study what you are, because when you were studying what you are, you would be the studying of what you are. Yeah? You can never get behind what you are and know it. This is always going to be in front of the camera, and that which we are is behind the camera, and never shall the two shall meet. Yeah? So the selfing is the act of being identified as a self. The mental process is in that act right now, and if you believe the thoughts, if you believe feelings as you're the feeler of them, if you believe the thoughts as the thinker of them, if you believe the actions as the actor of them, that is being in the act of being identified as a self. Yeah? It cannot happen, but it can seem to happen. Yeah? You are never going to be what you're not, ever. But you can seem to be what you're not. That's the trick. And the word seemingly is very important because it implies something that the Course in Miracles would imply quite a lot, which is seemingly is that everything is either true or false to you. In other words, you're the final arbiter. Yeah. So let's say if you're in one condition in one's life, like in recovery we speak, you'll hear a lot of people share about the worst thing that ever happened to them. They have a very clear idea what it was, and they built a mental temple at that location, and their head has used it for excuses of failed marriages or whatever. And so they have a very concrete idea that was the worst thing that ever happened. And then they go into the program and they get changed, and suddenly they see it as the best thing that ever happened. That's a pretty extreme example. So how could the worst thing go through its own metamorphosis and suddenly turn into the best thing? It isn't. It wasn't the worst thing or the best thing. It was the meaning you gave it, yeah? And the meaning you gave it was based on the condition you seem to be in. So if you're in the condition of being identified as a self, you're going to give meanings that are going to become very, very repetitive, very, very, very done over again, and you'll basically be living from the position of seeing only the past, because that is the eyesight of self. The eyesight of the self-centeredness is a form of looking called self-centeredness, which is blind to the seeing. You cannot use that form of looking to find what's seeing, because you are what's seeing. That's the message. So non-duality, humbly, to me is a negation. It means not two. It doesn't mean anything else. We jump to the conclusion that it means one. It doesn't mean anything. It means one thing, which is not two. It's a negation. And then when that's negated, you'll find out what's going on. But you'll stop trying to find out what's going on from what's not going on, and you will find out what's going on as that which is going on. Much more convincing, much more stabilized, because it doesn't take any effort to be what you are, which is awareness, let's put it that way, yes? There's no effort involved. Just like our daily experience becomes quite obvious what it reveals, that we're all in an event called seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, yes? We're in contact here, not through our hands, but through the consciousness that's moving through the hands, yeah? The hand isn't feeling, in a sense. There's feeling through the hand. So the eye isn't actually seeing, it facilitates seeing, and we call it vision because it comes through this. The same seeing, which is awareness, facilitates hearing, the ear facilitates it, but that which is seeing, yeah, isn't the ear. That which is hearing isn't the ear. That which is seeing isn't the eye. They're being used to facilitate seeing. Yeah? If you had 30 sense gates, you would have 30 experiences. There's no limitation to the consciousness that are moving through the 5 gates. They could move through 800 gates. Some insects have 7 senses, yeah? So they experience things a lot differently than we do, yeah? It's the same consciousness, but the gate will sort of define the experience, yeah? But if you believe that you're the one, see, this is what happens. There's a heist that goes on here. And the heist is formulated and initiated by the act of being identified as a self. Because what happens when the act of being identified as self is in place, then that idea claims everything that you're brought into contact with, yeah? So suddenly, you're brought into contact with consciousness, and it will go like this. It comes after consciousness, but it will imply that it's before consciousness. So suddenly, you are now conscious. And the weirdest thing of all is when you suddenly become the one who's conscious, you tend to be unconscious most of the time. Yeah, which drives a need to want to become more conscious. But all there is consciousness. There's no less or more. It's not a quantity. There's not a certain reservoir that you run out. Do you run out seeing in Thursday if you had a busy week? Is the things just shut down? No more seeing until you pay your bill. You got to pay the consciousness bill. And then all right, I got to pay it. Now I'm seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. Is that the case? And does the seeing, do you go to classes to see better? You know, do you look at saint pictures and it makes you see better? Are you practicing hearing better? I mean, the ear can screw up how much you're going to hear, but you're not affecting the hearing of it, yeah? And if you watch it, has what seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching ever demonstrated any effort? Are you trying now to see? So it's demonstrating no effort or thought at all. Then why would we believe that we can get there through thought and effort? It makes no sense. That which we like to get to demonstrates nothing of the sort that we're trying to use to get to it. Yeah? Because it's being what it is. And there's no effort in being what you are. There's a lot of effort in trying to be being from what you're not. You can't do and have yourself into being. It's impossible. All you can do and have yourself into is a mental state. Yeah? So the selfing is the act of being identified as a self. Once that becomes a fact, then there's just huge riffing on that idea. The freedom from it is prior to it, see? It's not after the bondage, because if you get released from a factual bondage, you're bound to get bound again, because that's how it goes here, yeah? But the freedom is prior to it. When you see the activity that seems to be the problem, you see it as an activity. And in a sense that there's no need for a solution. That's the solution. The solution is already inherently available at all times with no requirement necessary to meet it, because you are it. You have taken out all the formalities. You're not going to meet it and greet it and arrive at it and then depart from it and then try to arrive at it again. You are it. There's no way you can escape it. So this whole idea of getting into the moment is totally predicated on an insane idea that you could be out of a moment, and you can't. When you were a kid, were you trying to get into the moment? Were you thinking, well, were you worried, will I be playing next week? You had no idea of time yet, and you wanted to, hey, Mom, come in my room. Was Wayne playing better than I was today? I have some strong suspicion he's a better player than I am. None of that was going on. All that stuff had to grow. It took time, yeah? So this idea of trying to get into the moment is predicated on an insane idea you could be out of a moment. And then conversely, the idea of trying to get out of self is totally based on that you're in self. And I'm telling you humbly, you're not in self. So the best way to get out of an imaginary place is to realize it's imaginary. How long is it going to take to get out of it? And when is it available? Now. Where's the location? Here. How long would it take? No time at all. I'm telling you, when truth downloads in you, one of the qualities it's going to demonstrate is timelessness. It has nothing to do with time. More is not better in it. When you have all the longing and the, all the striving and loving and everything, if this downloads in a certain way, yeah, what it reveals is it's always been this way. It's never not been this way. So the idea of arriving at where you've always been makes absolutely no sense when it dawns on you. And the idea of I had an event in something that's always happening makes no sense. How can you have a happening in that which is always happening? So basically, you're inherently awake right now, and then you can seem to be awake to that fact, or you can seem to be asleep to that fact, but it doesn't change the fact. You cannot be unawake. You can think you are, and this is the power. Like we say in recovery, there's an acronym we use a lot, which is false evidence appearing real, fear. Yep. Now, if you look at that, how could false evidence appear real? It would actually have to appear real to what's real. Where's it going to get reality lent to it? It's false evidence. It's not real. It says false evidence appears real. It needs us, and we are the reality, like it or not. It needs us to believe that it's real, and then the false evidence can reach a level of seemingly being real to what's real. That's the case. It's the whole thing with the Course. Famous statement, We are the dreaming of the dream. I don't believe there's a dream. I think everything's verbing. So let's say we're the dreaming of the dreaming. We forget that we're dreaming. First of all, that's impossible right there. So, all right, how do you forget that you're dreaming? Well, obviously, if you become identified as the dreamt, that would be sufficient to seemingly forget that you're dreaming, yeah? So now, mind takes itself seemingly to be the body, and now it's defined by the body's condition, yeah? So you and I are the dreaming of the dream. We forget that we're dreaming. And when we're in that condition, what happens? We give everything we're dreaming the power to affect us. Doesn't it sound like your day? Really?
Yeah.
You're dreaming thoughts, and now suddenly the thoughts own you. Once you take yourself to be the thinker, thoughts have a huge amount of power. They do, don't they? I mean, thoughts that are driving you crazy has no ability to affect me unless I call them my thoughts. You got to get suspicious here. It's not feelings, it's not thoughts, it's not actions, it's the sense of being the actor, the thinker, the feeler. That's the act of being bonded to it. And it can only reach the level of seemingly so. It cannot be so. There's only so-ness. Yeah? But it can seem to be so, to so-ness. Yeah? So if you see the act of being identified as self, you won't be looking from it, basically. And when you're not looking from it and you're seeing it, it's not a fact. That assumption is totally full of hot air. Yeah, you will see it for what it is, an activity that needs your compliance to gain any traction. When your compliance is removed, you see it almost like a paper-thin wall with tons of, like, translucent. You see right freaking through it. And thoughts have a nature of coming and going, but when they're your thoughts, they're put into an orbit. They're put in orbit around you, around this little action idea. Yeah, they coagulate. Thoughts coagulate around things. Yes, because thoughts are always about, and the only thing that something can be about is a thing. There's got to be a location that it coagulates around. That's what the system does. The thought system pictures you as a body. The thought system doesn't value now. It's using now to think about yesterday and tomorrow. Because yesterday and tomorrow, you're pictured really clearly yesterday and tomorrow. You have no idea what's happening now, really. But you definitely know you were there 3 years ago in Panama. You got the pictures to show it. And your passport has been freaking stamped. So I have verification I was there, because you have no freaking clue. And they say in the new research that every time you remember something, all you remember is a memory of it. Nothing ever happened. Really? You can't verify anything. Literally. When you go, oh, I'm going back to that day, you never get back to that day. There was no day. There's a memory of a day. These should, I don't know, to me they're should perk up your ears a little bit. What's going on here? Because in a way, when you were a kid, life was happening, it was pretty cool. And then suddenly the mental state developed, and then it was seen as life's happening to me. That's a pure interpretation that you're saddled with. And for you to be so important, then life has to be very, very more unimportant. Yeah? And then for things to be all there is, the no-thingness has to be forgotten. It can't be, but it can seemingly be. It can appear to watch so that this place is true. And if it takes this place to be true, it seems as real can be, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. When that truthness is extracted, you see through it. Did this change? Did this place, this is a projection. There is no thing here. It's dreaming. As the Course would say, it's projection, then perception. First there's the dreaming, and then in the dreaming, there's a point of perception, and we see everything from this point as reality. And here then, in this dualistic little event, you can travel heavy or you can travel light. And the only value the truth has is here, where it can seem not to be so. In truth, there's no value. It's completely what it is. But here, when it can seem not to be so, it's a freaking incredibly good idea to entertain it so it can have some influence here. And to me, long-lasting influence like that is called traveling lighter. As the action figure, seemingly, by realizing you're not the action figure. That's the best gift you can ever give. See, if you're taken to be this, it's going to be an urban renewal project to the last freaking breath. You're going to be finding some fault or something to work on. It's like your budget is constantly, it's like a defense budget, zillions of dollars for fucking things you're never going to use. Yeah. But if this isn't so, if the mental hen gets off this, it's the greatest day for the body. It's unbelievable. Because the body can't take the pressure of being the center of the universe. It just can't take the concentrated attention it's getting all day. It can't take being barraged by 70,000 thoughts a day. It just can't. Look at all the mutations and neuroses that are growing. It's like a Petri dish to calcified, arthritic, incredible insanity. It's just way too much. It's like, look at the day. When the sun's all out, everyone's happy. If you concentrated that sun, it could burn the hell out of things. We're living under this mental magnifying glass, and everything's all about us. And we'll tolerate someone else talking about it's all about them, so we can just go home and think about it from where it's all about us. The reference is so strong. It's like, there's some beautiful messages, but you've got to see what happens. When you hear the message, you're not a body, you hear it as a body. It's like the idea of being a clone. Yeah, you're a clone. There's a great movie I like, Moon. I've taken a lot of liberty with translating it, but in this movie, there's a guy who's a Boston Red Sox fan, and he's working on this moon where they found a new mineral that fuels all our technology. So all he takes is one guy to run this whole giant harvesting situation. And the guy's got the Boston Red Sox, he got a picture of his family, and he only has 5 more days in this 5-year thing, which is going to go on ad infinitum. He never gets to the 4th day. He only has 5 days left of his 5-year little stint. Then he's going home, which he's never going home. They just found that if they give the clones some human programming, they work better. They feel they have more meaning and purpose. Yeah. He would swear he's a boss. He swears he was at that game in 1984. He wasn't anywhere. He was in this fucking little, whatever, placenta tube or whatever. So suddenly he gets confronted with indisputable evidence that it's a clone. And you would think, oh, that's pretty good. Clone realizes it's a clone. How long would that take? Pretty quickly, right? I'm a clone, and then, hey, you're a clone. All right, great. But what happens is the news that it's a clone gets caught by the human programming first. And it's a much different reaction when a clone realizes it's a clone, when a supposed person realizes it's a clone. That's a real bummer. Because it just destroyed the whole Red Sox history, the family and everything like that. Suddenly, it seems to be bereft of meaning, and it would be a very Armageddon sort of a time. Yeah? And this is what happens, and this is what gets missed. Like Ramana Maharshi says, there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing that wants to get salvation for the non-existent thing. Now, if you hear this, we could just leave and save us a lot of time and go to the desserts quickly. Yeah? There's a presupposing of a non-existent thing. Yes? Yes. And then suddenly, in that condition, and a wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing. Okay? So if you don't get it at that point, he goes, all right, if that's the case, then your spiritual practices themselves will be used to reinforce the non-existent thing. How can they destroy the non-existent thing? And first of all, how can you destroy a non-existent thing? It's not existing. This is the dilemma. This is selfing. That's the essence of it. There's the space, and then there was a mental conception that that space implied there was a thing there. And so this now, the presupposing is a beautiful use of word, because the assuming and the presupposing goes like this. The conscious context happening, yes, first there's, let's say, contextual awareness, then there's consciousness, and then there's the activity that happens, and then mental process arises, and the mental process arises in the act of being identified as self. And when it arises, that self it's identifying with is presupposed to be before everything else. So now suddenly you're the one who's conscious, you're the one who's seeing, you're the one who's hearing, you're the one who's thinking, you're the one who's feeling, you're the one who's doing everything. Yeah? And then the language backs it up, because the language is constantly implying you have a lot to do with a lot of shit you have nothing to do with. It does. Like I come here, haven't been to New York, let's say, in a few years. This happened to me when I was in Dover one time. Came to a meeting, someone who knew me came in and said, hey, Paul, you're growing your hair. So I said, yeah, I'm growing my hair. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. And he was balding. I said, you're not doing that well. And I said, you know, what I found is if I join with other people and I grow my hair with them, it grows better and it gets much more lustrous, you know. So you should join us. It's $50 a week. You can pay me now. Come on Saturday, 8 to 11, you know. And I could go on, pride and everything. But in fact, all I do is just not cut the hair. I have absolutely nothing to do with the hair whatsoever, except of abstaining from doing anything to it. But the language implies I have a lot to do with it, yeah? And then when the knee went out surfing, and then I tell everyone, well, I hurt my knee. It sounded like I went out with a hammer and just fucking hit it, and I hurt my knee, like I did it, like I was hell-bent of hurting my knee. I had nothing to do with it. The knee went out, I'm conscious, the knee went out. But the language translates that as a subjective language. I had something to do with it, and I don't. This is what happens. The selfing comes after and implies that it's before. The way we feel time's happening here, the mental logic doesn't play that game. It uses what's after and puts it before. That's how it claims everything. That's how it neuters the ever-present solution. Just being awake to conscious contact would be sufficient, more sufficient than 50 scriptures if you were just awake to it, the information. But the information gets neutered because the selfing says it's the one who's conscious. And someone was asking me today about the meetings. They said, well, and they asked, this happened to me in LA. They asked the guy who was at the door, what? Everything this guy says goes over my head. So he asked me to, and I said, that's where I'm aiming, yeah? Because I talk for long enough to you about mind, it goes absolutely nowhere, big M mind. But when you talk to big M mind about you, it can go somewhere, yeah? And the thing is, you got to get through the mental state defenses, because it's like the Death Star in Star Wars. It will shoot down everything. It's like that Buddha with 1,000 hands, so we'll put mitts on them. And every message, so you hear the message like, here's a lion who's mistaken itself to be a sheep. So a lion comes into town and says, hey, you're a lion. You think this would go pretty well, yeah? And the lion goes, yeah, it likes the message. But as it's coming, the mid of selfing arises, it catches it and hears it like a sheep. So now the lion's message that you're a lion doesn't get through to the lion. It gets translated into I can become like a lion as a sheep. This is what's happening. And if you don't catch it, you're going to be looking from it. And it's going to be the shadow that's going to follow you, and then you're going to live those two statements by Ramana Maharshi. You will be attempting to get salvation for a non-existent thing, and even your practices themselves will be reinforcing a thing when you believe they're going to destroy it. That's exactly what's going to be the condition. This is a warning, pure and simple. It should be on every spiritual book that's out. They should, before the author page, snap in here, this could be dangerous to your spiritual health, like cigarettes, because it could. This is what happened with me, I swear. I was just, I was seeking, whatever you want to call it, and I thought I was pretty good at it. Would always be the last one up at the meditations, Went to India a couple of times, had a good resume, And then I was going ahead doing this, and then this was introduced to me, this idea, and I swear, years of this spiritual story was condensed and compacted, and this template came right over it and was those two sentences, and my spiritual pants fell down, and I just didn't pick them up. The emperor had no clothes, and it was fucking fine with me. Yeah. And then suddenly I got nothing, and I stayed with nothing, and nothing turned into everything. Yeah, because every one of us has had tons of something, and where has it taken us? To the point where we really need nothing. Yeah, you are what you're looking for. The seeker is the sought. As St. Francis says, what's looking is what you're looking for. These aren't cryptic, they're facts. Yeah, and then all the other good shit is warnings. Like Huang Po, a great Zen master, says, hey, listen, whatever can be perceived cannot be perceiving. So end of story. The body is not what's looking or hearing or feeling or tasting or touching. Whatever can be perceived cannot be perceiving. End of story. Then he also gives another warning. You can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. Now you could use the Buddha to seek anything else, but you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. Anything else you could use. It's to seek Krishna, use the Buddha. Yeah, a car wash, seek the Buddha, use the Buddha. But you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You can't use light to seek light. You can't use big M mind to seek big M mind. So if you feel like you're in the modality of seeking light, then you must be mistaking yourself for something other than light. Or it would make absolutely no sense for light to seek light. The Buddha, it makes no sense for the Buddha to seek the Buddha. It makes no sense for the Buddha to know the Buddha. It's only got one opportunity when it comes to Buddha, to be the Buddha. And these people are attempting to imply you are that. And all your attempts to find it, if you are that, are not going to succeed. Because the finding it, the seeking for it, is going to be used to turn an assumption into a fact that you're something other than the Buddha.
So we should do nothing then, right?
No, your action figures, you're gonna do something, but just don't realize you're not the doer of it. This isn't about stop doing. You can't stop doing.
Like you said, you'd better off not have thoughts in general. I know not.
No, just when the thoughts arise, see there's no thinker, because the idea of being a thinker is a thought that disguises itself as the thinker, but it's just another thought. Yeah. See what you're not humbly, and that will be what you are. You can't arrive at where you are. You guys you can't pull into the parking space. You got to sort of back in. So you've got to see what you're not, and in seeing what you're not, sooner or later it's going to dawn on you, you are the seeing of what you're not. That's the best you can do, getting close to you. You can only be it, but there'll be an intimation of it by seeing what you're not. And for me, what happened, it's just produced a sense of traveling lighter that has stabilized. You know, it didn't change the geography of the action figure. Cancers come, or girlfriends leave, or this or that. But I've traveled lighter over a lot of fucking terrain here with no effort or thought on my part. I mean, stabilized, yeah. This is not an experience. You are not going to be here to get it. Yeah, you're not. You cannot experience your own absence. It's not going to happen. It's not an experience, first of all. When I was seeking spiritually and I saw me right now, this would be the reason why I was seeking. Because this looks way too normal for what I thought spirituality was going to produce. The ordinariness is scary to the mental state. It's sort of like when you see a coyote trying to get into the desert tortoise. It's really keen on getting the meat, but after a few minutes it realizes it can't get in and it loses interest. This is how the truth really, really starts to be a bit abided in. You see, the mental state will try to claim it after it can't fucking make anything out of it. I remember when I first heard this message, I was living in Australia, and I'm not a self and stuff like that. So my girlfriend went out, and she said, Paul, I want you to do dishes when I'm out. So I said, all right. She came back, the dishes weren't done, and she said, Paul, why didn't you do dishes? I said, there is no Paul. There are no dishes. And she said, fuck you, do the dishes. So the mental state tried to claim it to its own advantage, but it got bored with it. Yeah, and that's when it really shines. The shine isn't the veneer that the mental state is interested in. That's like crows with shiny objects. It's the nothingness. It can't be made into anything. I don't experience anything at talks, ever. It's just like a big gap in time. I have no experience whatsoever out of this. But I lose interest in all the experiences I'm having when I walked in here. Any pains, anything, they're all gone completely. But so is the joy of being there to get something. That's gone completely. Yeah. So it's really like very quite ordinary, like dog shit awareness, really. You can't write blogs about it. I mean, I love to go to Peru and paint my face and do ayahuasca and lick a toad. I could write a lot of shit about that. But this is like going to the store, rye or sourdough. It's like nothing. Doesn't look like anything's happening. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, because nothing's actually happening. Everything gets erased like an Etch-a-Sketch. This will be gone as soon as we leave here. Completely erased. That's traveling lighter. The biggest weight, the one you weren't willing to throw off the boat, is in the water. It can only bob so long, and then it sinks. So if you want to see it, there's a couple of clues. You got to know the mental state's movement, and its only movement is to claim. That's what it does. You can see its footprints by the word my. My indicates a lot of its movement, yeah? So we always used to use this example. It's a nice one to explain what I'm trying to say. Put money up there, put health up there, put sex up there. Everyone would react to the words based on where they think they are, right? Or where they hope they want to be and stuff, like in sex, All right? I'm going to change the word completely, but I'm not changing the word at all. So my money, my health, my sex. Totally different, eh? So I could wish everyone here to have lots of money, but I don't want you to have any of my money. The same money, but totally different by the my. That's the role we're playing here. That's the act of being identified as a self. That's what happens. When the mental state is in the act of being identified as a self, and we have given some light to it, that's what happens. It implies it's before everything. Problems, my problem. Girlfriend, my girlfriend. Health, my health. Yeah? Changes the meaning of it. You get an interpretation, and after a while, you feel like it's the real thing. But there's an emptiness to it, and usually it's coincided with an irritable restlessness and discontent, because you're now relying on something that's totally unreliable. And the mental state is agitation. That's all it is. It's, in Buddhism, they have the Four Noble Truths, and supposedly desire is the cause of the suffering or the malaise. Well, the mental state is in constant desire to become what it can never become and unbecome what it thinks it is. It's like a slinky going like in an eternal staircase in hell. Just it's agitation that begets agitation. You can watch it. You come to the meetings like this. We would be so much better off we have never heard the word awakening. Totally. It has driven so many people crazy now. And then enlightenment even worse. When enlightenment means cessation of all suffering, at these meetings it's used to produce suffering. That's what the mental state. The mental state claims something that signifies the exact opposite of what it produces. That's what it does all day. See it. See the heist. Because you're in cahoots with it. You are. You're believing, and as Jesus says, as you believe, so it is. And in this case, it's exactly true. Yeah? If you believe you're a body, so it will seem to be. Yeah? It will. So I feel, sometimes I do these talks like after devotional music, kirtan and everything. It's beautiful. I love kirtan. And then I come up here and I say, well, here's the bad news, because, it's like you cannot say it's an experience, because it isn't. You can't say you can have it, because you can't. You can't say you can lose it, which is great, because it's not yours, yeah? It's the only possibility we have concerning it is being it, yeah? And I'm humbly saying we're being it right now. We just don't think so. Thinking is what makes it seem not so. Nothing else does. Nothing else does. It's the thinking that makes it seem not so. If you're not addicted to the thoughts, you won't be the product of a thought. Yeah? You'll be led by and directed by something other than thought. Yeah? Blue will be blue, red will be red. The horse is in front of the cart, things will make sense. You'll have no questions about metaphysics. You'll have questions like, where are my keys? Something like that. Seriously, you lose total interest in the topic of spirituality, I feel. You lose total interest in the need to be liberated, because what needs to be liberated isn't you. Seriously, you lose total interest in all. The losing of interest is the great interest. That's how it is. When you have interest in what's always available at all times, it looks like you've lost interest in a lot of things. But when you have interest in what's always available at all times, that interest isn't being sent out to fulfill mental chores. It's not being sent out into the past to think and remember, to illuminate the remembering of you as a body. Nor is it constantly going on to these insane journeys to the future and to what's not happening to light up that little stage of imaginary action figurehood. It's resting. That's what presence is. It's rest. It's undirected interest and attention. That's presence. So it looks like you've lost a lot of interest, but you haven't lost any interest. The interest is now stabilized. It's resting in it's resting right where it always is, which is this here and now. And it has nothing to do, it's not about you whatsoever. And you know what? When you call it to go do some the dogs don't listen anymore. They don't listen to you. You have all right, they don't. They're just resting. Fuck you, I'm not going over there. I'm not going 5 years from now to light up you may have cancer and what would mean. Forget about it. Yeah, they just rest here and you enjoy that sense of being on, incessantly on, awake to being awake. You are what you're looking for. The seeker is the sought. End of story. Did you ever see any follow-up sentences after those statements? The seeker is the sought, and that's it. Bingo. That's as far as you can go. The far as you can go is you're the seeing of what you're not. There's nothing else to go to. That's where grace abounds. You've taken the ball as far as you can take it. And the rightful move is to put it down, and you'll find out what's happening. The mental landscape is verbing, but there are nouns that are made out of it. Yeah? So there's verbing and nouns in the mental way of seeing. There are no nouns. It's all verbing. There is no entrance point into what is, nor is there any exit to what is. We have this idea of being an observer. That's in content. The sense of being the observer is not in context. It's mental. The sense of being the witness is mental. It's the presupposing that you're out of the content as the content, which is impossible. It's like this. Let's say there's a Browning camera. You remember the Browning cameras? They used to have like a plastic lens. Basically, you just pointed and hoped. You couldn't see. So fuck it, then maybe I got a picture enough. So you have the Browning. And then there's this huge camera with 350, 360 degree HD, unbelievable apertures, and it's walking around in this little area, and it sees the Brownie, and it looks through the Brownie, and as it's looking through the Brownie, it suddenly seemingly forgets that it's the huge camera. Yeah. So now its hugeness is being defined by what it's looking through. So now it's looking through the Brownie camera as the Brownie camera. So if it was looking through the Brownie camera as the bigger camera, it could just stop looking through it. But as it's looking through the thing, it starts taking itself to be the Brownie camera. It's not sure of that, it just assumes that it's the Brownie camera. Now its aperture is so small, it's not freaking seeing a thing, so it's just based on speculation what's happening. Yeah? And then it's really pissed off of being a Brownie, but it can never entertain the possibility of moving away, because the only way it can entertain moving is as the Brownie, because it's identified as the Brownie. Now, what would have to happen? Do you have to kill the Brownie for it to find itself? Do you have to make the Brownie a superhuman Nikon when it can't be? It's a Brownie? No. All you have to hear is you're not the Brownie, because you're not. How long would it take for the bigger camera, to realize it's not the Brownie? Not much time at all, because it's never been the Brownie. It was just identified as what it's not. Once that's corrected, it doesn't see, oh, I'm pulling myself away from the Brownie as the Brownie. No, that would be impossible. If you pulled yourself away from the Brownie as the Brownie, that'd be the Brownie. You can't, So by seeing what you're not, then it can keep looking through the Brownie now, but it's not defined by the Brownie. And then whatever point it gets tired of looking through this little plastic lens, it's just, and then it's not like, oh, I unbecame being a Brownie and I've now become, no. It's always been the bigger camera. It was never not the bigger camera, nor will it ever be not the bigger camera. Yes? It's never not been the big camera. Guess what? That's us. It's the act of being identified as a self. It can never culminate in you and I being a self. That's why it's an activity. It cannot make it so it has to keep going to seem to make it so. If you were a thing, you wouldn't be thinking about it so much. You would just be a thing. Yeah? Do you know what I mean? But because we're not a thing, to make it seem like we're a thing, there's got to be a lot of reinforcement, which is the thoughts and the claiming of every other activity and using them to imply that you're a thing. And even then it still doesn't hold water, because you go to sleep at night and what happens? You seem to forget the thing completely. Every night. You get a break. And I don't see any people, don't let me sleep. And most people are looking forward to sleeping because they're freaking tired of the selfing all day. It's like blowing a balloon with holes. It's like, it looks like me. It's like exhausting. You need a break. I don't see, well, don't let me sleep. Not most people. They're like, I can't wait to go to sleep. I can't wait to forget myself for a little while. And then you wake up and there you are. All right, I'm refreshed. Let's keep remembering self. You're not doing it. See, you're never remembering self. The mental state is remembering self and you're believing it. That's the key. You don't have to stop doing anything. Just don't. If you stop claiming to be doing all this shit, it's very easy to see it's not you. If you keep thinking you're doing it, then you're going to think, I've got to undo it. And that's the trap of selfing. Yeah? It traps you by you trying to get out of it. That's when it really has you, when you try to leave it. Because you're leaving it defines it as real. But who the hell would leave an imaginary place at such a quick, pace? I'm going to get out of this place, but you're not in it. See, listen. If you thought you were a car and you were in a car, good luck trying to get out of the car. If you thought you were the car and then you try to get out of the car, it would never work. But if you see you're not the car, suddenly the windows appear, the doors. I can just step out. That's what happened with me in recovery. 9th, 11th year, my head cracked open some other way, and something downloaded. And there was this sentence that I've never forgotten in recovery, which just says, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. So we would be the us, yeah? And then there would be a foreign installment called self. To me, if you can see it as other, it increases your possibility of realizing it's not you. If you keep calling it you, it's going to be difficult to get out of it. So I saw it as self, a foreign installment, and then us as us, not different, yeah? And then it says, and we're convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us, we will now look at some of its manifestations. And so then they say resentment and fear and stuff like that. So if you follow the logic, fear is a manifestation of self in one's life. Yeah? So fear is used to be a cause of many things, but what's causing fear in this take is that self-reliance causes fear. So when you're relying on something that's not so, it's going to produce a lot of stabilized anxiety because it's not so. Like they say in the Course, what can a failed system show you? Well, it can show you it's failed. And I think it's shown us, all of us, for way overboard that it's a failed system, that it's not meant to be relied upon. Yeah? You see it? And so when I saw it as other, what occurred was, for the first time, a new possibility that was always available became available, which was I can be free from it. And then I realized most of my life I had been trying to be free as it. And I was falling into this little lock we talk about in recovery, self trying to get out of self. And we say that we got to quit playing God, yeah? But what happens if that which is playing God tries to quit playing God? That's playing God. And it goes ad infinitum. You can't get out of playing God through the thing that's playing God. Because every time it quits playing God, it's playing God. You see? So if you believe you're in somewhere and you have to get out of it, in a way, that's not a good move. You've got to question, are you in it? If you're not in it, there'll be no need to get out of it. That's being out of it. Realizing you've never been in it is stabilized being out of it. You've never successfully escaped from what you believed you're in. Never. So, yeah, that's it, I think. Any questions? It's the last talk of this little run. 9 talks, 5 days. I've slapped so many people. I've been slapped myself. I'm just looking for some gluten-free desserts soon. Maybe coconut ice cream. Any questions? Yes? Yes?
Well, how can we, I can't even answer the question because it
Great.
presupposes a me. So how can, I'll just say it, how can we stop selfing? did the spiritual practices really work, or you, like you described, the self and the ego?
Well, it's
kind
up
of
to
hijacks
you.
them anyway.
Hmm?
The self without ego sort of hijacks most of them anyway. So, is it like almost like in your experience? Is it just come a point where the true self, whatever you want to call it, awareness, just gets tired of the charade and just says, okay, I'm done with Leela, I'm done with the drama, let's just wake up now.
Well, let's see if there's a coming to a point that's always available at all times, then there's really no coming to it.
Well, there's no time anyways.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't even ask the question. I mean, I can't ask the question,
But you did anyway.
but I did. As usual. Because I'm waiting for the words, like you know, all these
Yeah.
words. When are the words gonna go, knock me away?
How about now? Maybe it already happened.
Well, it did.
Really, it has already happened. That which is always happening has already happened.
But then I came back. Or
Who believes that?
the self?
That's right. So the self is always going to believe it came back. That's what it does.
No.
Literally, where is there any evidence that the self came back? The only evidence you're gathering is from the self. Of course it's going to say it came back. If you don't, what happens to me, humbly, I'll share with something. I first went to a talk like this years ago in Berkeley. And, you know, I didn't know much about the topic. And, well, I actually did. I had been introduced to it. So this lady, I walked in, and it was really nice space. It wasn't so much what she said. But I raised my hand, and I said to her, because something had changed already by just sitting there. And I gave her like a report, and I said, you know, I came in here, and I was seeing emotional states, physical states, and mental states. But I assumed that it was what I am seeing it. And now that I'm in here, I realized that was a mental state claiming to be seeing the other mental states. Yep. So at one point I was at this and something moved, so I saw more of what was going on. Yeah. So what I saw, I saw the claiming to a certain point, but there was a claiming of that, yeah, that I didn't see seemingly. So then I went about my business for a few months entertaining possibilities, and this would be revealed, the same pattern, where let's say I feel a lot of clarity, and then suddenly something would rise, say, yes, I'm feeling a lot of clarity. And there was an assumption that was the final me, but then the camera moved back, and I saw that in front of the camera. But because it was always implying to be behind the camera. Now I had about 7 or 8 of those, and then like 100th monkey thing happened. I got it in a sense. I got the principle. This is always going to rise and claim to be the seeing of its own arising. Yeah? So that's that. So I didn't need to go through the experience anymore. It was a leap, which mind is very apt to do. Yeah? It leaps. So like if there's a realization, it's a realization in mind. It's not, you know, you're not realizing mind, it's a realization in mind, big M mind. And what happens is it reverberates. And like if you throw a stone down a well and you don't ever hear it drop, that's what it's like. So the realization in mind starts like a sonar, gives you an indication of the depth and breadth of mind, which is, there's no end, yeah? So suddenly, whatever is arising isn't that which is seeing it, yeah? You can learn about it through 30,000 examples, maybe 1 will do, maybe 6 or 7, but the leap will be made, yeah? And now you will be watching what's in front of the camera, but you'll have a sense that what is seeing is always behind the camera, yeah? And whenever this arises, you can guarantee it's in front of the camera. Yeah? So it's in the seeing of what you're not, you'll get an intimation of what you are, which is the seeing of what you're not. Yeah, you'll sense it. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, this is kind of weird, I guess. But on one of your YouTube lectures, you were talking about your ears ring.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, and you said you like the sound of your ears.
Yes.
And yeah. So how do you? And you related it to this whole thing. And
Well, yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, like, what you meant by that.
Well, you know, when I went to Staten Island, which is a strange social experiment, and we used to give this talk, a lot of people started hearing this hum, you know, the sound. Maybe it's tinnitus, whatever it is, but I don't care. I like it, enjoy it. And then, you know, I've had it since all I can remember, constantly. It's always on. And I followed it, and it's the closest sound to what I am. Because every time I hear another sound, it's layered on this sound of this hum. And it's also more constant than breath or heartbeat or hearing the blood move, because it doesn't have any in and out. It's just on. Different tones, mostly somewhat low treble, and just all the time. And you can hear it when it's loud out here, or sense it, and you can hear it in silence. So I've never had silence. When I'm in silence, it's super loud. Literally, it's like blasting loud, yeah? And I've noticed that I've taken it as far as you can go, and no other sound I ever heard was before this sound, and yet all you run into is what's hearing the sound, which cannot be heard. That which is hearing the sound can't be heard. So you come up right against what you are, which is not a thing, yeah? Yeah? And so I think sound is a good way to use. It's a pretty good, because sound doesn't seem to be pointed. Vision is much more easily used for the story of self, yeah? Because you're seeing things. But sound is vague, yeah? You're like in a thing of water. You can't really fix a position. If you close your eyes, you lose any sense of reference. You're in like a big wave getting tumbled around in sound. But if you can hear like the layers of sound, which some have more time and space in between them, and you take it back. I've never heard anything as close to this as what I am. You know, as Ramana said, if you follow everything back, it's going to go back to the source, because all there is he would call it big S self, but let's say big mind, yeah? So that sound I dig it, man. Yeah. I tell people, if you're hearing it, it's a nice place to put your active head, because it can rest there, because it's more constant than the head. It never deviates. It's just on completely, like I'm hearing it now, like a siren. Yeah. I don't know if it's a sign of insanity. Could be. I should maybe be, hospitalized, but I'm going to have a smile on my face. Because I dig it. Yeah, I do. Who doesn't want to explore? Doesn't this place, how many rocks can you turn over here, you know? We've done tons of it. You've got to go to, like, what's hearing, what's seeing, what's feeling. That can hold your attention, because it's so much more constant in your attention. Everything else, sometimes the attention can get bored with. It never gets bored with this, because it's it, really. Yeah? And if this sound is constant, that which is hearing it must be more constant in a sense, or you wouldn't recognize the constancy of it, would you?
But if you make it into an experience, then you're just back into
But if an experience is always available at all time and is always going on, it's not an experience anymore.
If you merge into the experience, you become the experiencing, right?
You don't need to merge into anything.
Well,
You're the context of everything.
Or if that's words again. If you let go of everything else, that's what's there.
But the thing is, here you realize there's no one holding on to anything else. So there's no need to even go to the next stage of letting go. It's unnecessary. No one ever held on to anything. Yeah? But you don't do it. I'm not doing it anymore.
Effortless effort.
It's not, you
stop effort.
There's a huge difference between doing and being. Doing exertion. That's exertion in a sense. Being is, if something was being 200 miles per hour, there would be no sweat. Yeah? If something was doing 200 miles per hour, they could have a heart attack. Mm-hmm. But if they were being 200 miles per hour, there'd be no sweat being 200 miles. The being is a different modality. See? We can't entertain being because we think we are a being already. But this isn't being. This is manufactured. This is an appearance in what we are. It has no reality other than what mind gives it. and it's going to come to an end. Comes to an end every night. Yep.
Those few sentences that you said were liberating. This was I'm in recovery myself, and this in the big book helped me a lot. It was liberating in the sense that you shared. It says selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by hundreds of forms of fear, self-disillusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we stepped on the toes of our fellows, and they retaliated. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt.
Yes. See
and that
what?
was like, I blame, like, I don't know, do you ever hear Johnny Harris? He's out west. He may be dead by now, I don't know, but I got sober in Phoenix, Arizona, and he shared, like, he said he spent half of his life blaming people, places, and things for why he was the way he was. And as long as he did that, he didn't have to take responsibility for himself, because he wasn't the problem, they were.
Yes.
So when you flip that around, like you're talking,
Yeah.
it's that was for me reading that at the time, just I could let go, because it's like I stopped doing war with people,
Yeah.
and with myself,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Well, this says a lot in recovery. It says, slights fancied or real can kill you, because it's not the slight, it's you're the juice.
Yeah.
If you believe something that was fancied was real, it has the power to kill you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's real or not. It's you that give it the meaning it
and
has.
what I find interesting.
You're getting
too,
excited. You're getting up
yeah,
here.
it never
Yeah.
says. It never
Good.
says. It never says like that. There. It doesn't say. What I find good. I've been, alcohol and drugs. It doesn't say alcohol and drugs is the problem. It says self-centeredness is the problem.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is the root of our problem.
Yeah.
And how many people that I've met in my life that are addicts and stuff, including myself, I always thought my drinking was my problem, but it really wasn't.
No.
It was my self-centeredness.
Yes.
And how I projected that out in the world and created all this, madness for myself.
Yes.
And you really shared a lot tonight and helped even reinforce more of a liberating idea,
Yeah.
for-
Well, humbly in recovery, I think the real problem is identification as a self, which makes you either the problem or the solution. If you're believing the identification as a self, you're the problem. If you're not, you're the solution. And it's an activity. It can never culminate into what it assumes to be already so. It can't. So it's always an activity. It's an activity, the act of being identified as a self. Yeah? It's going to be presented, but it doesn't mean it means it's you. Yeah? It wants to be used to imply that, but it cannot make it so. That's the beauty of it, yeah? The beauty from seeing the problem from the solution, there is no problem. And therefore, there's no need for a solution. Literally, no need for a solution, yeah. Yeah, there's a beautiful thing. It says self-examination, but really it should be examination of self, yeah? If you see, this whole program, it says self-knowledge avails us nothing. Why is that? Knowledge of self could be very valuable, but knowledge claimed by self will be neutered. Yeah? This is what selfing does. It claims what it comes in contact with. And if you read the word self and go to the dictionary, usually followed by a hyphen with about 180 attributes, and if you actually total them up, I'd say about 145 are sort of in the negative way, and maybe 35, some good bones thrown out. So you got self-immolation, self-destruction, self-hatred, then maybe a little self-love, but then back to self-destruction. It's like incredible. And to have that to be the theme setter, a mental state that will, if things are going good, it's going to be concerned in about 10 minutes, but it has a little feeling of unease. It thinks it's launching into a lifelong depression. You do not want that to, your little Play-Doh of the day, you don't want that to be pulling it, because it's pulling out, it's elongating the supposed bad and shortening the good. You want that to be it all day? That theme? It's slavery. You can live a life not dictated by thought. I'm telling you, it's possible very easily. You already have when you were a kid. It's not like some foreign thing. You just grew into something seemingly, and you can outgrow. You can grow out of it seemingly. Yeah. There's a
That used to-
possible. Hmm?
when I was
Go ahead, bro. You take over.
No.
We should have a
When I
like
was
a
a kid-
revival meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my mind used to race when I was little, you know. I couldn't focus and pay attention. You know?
Yeah.
When I got in recovery, my sponsor told me go to a park and feed the ducks, right? So I went to the park to feed the ducks, and then the ducks were like coming at me, like driving me crazy. I was supposed to go there for peace.
Yeah.
That was the exercise.
Yes.
But I didn't get any until I realized that I can be at peace, and it has nothing to do with going to the park or feeding the ducks.
Yeah.
Okay? It's like you're talking about, just
Yeah.
being in the moment. That's where it is.
Yeah.
You
Well,
don't
the thing
even
is,
think.
you can't be out of the moment. Get over that idea you can be in the moment.
Right.
You can't be in it. You can't be out of it. You are the moment, basically. Without you, what's going to be seen? Really, without you, what's going to be heard? You're it. Seriously. Not as this, but as what we are, for sure. Like the Course says, a beautiful way to say goodbye, which I hope we hurry up to, is you and I are dreaming the dream, and as we do, the dream is going to get happier, right? It's beautiful. You and I are going to dream ourselves out of the dream, and as we do, as we are, which is this meeting is a sample of that, the dream will get happier. It's beautiful, beautiful statement. So this isn't about, it's using the material of the dream to dream itself out of it. It's just like here, in AA we call it the higher power, in Course in Miracles it's called the Holy Spirit. So basically you take the same data, the same metadata, the same information that the mental state has gotten and misdirects it, you surrender it to the Holy Spirit, it takes the same raw data but makes a whole different thing out of it. See? Because it's not the directing, it's what's directing. Yeah? It's like many of us have surrendered in this life. It wasn't the surrender that was important, it's what we surrendered to. I've surrendered to the police, I've surrendered to girls, I've surrendered to dope, yeah? And I surrendered to this program. Now this program has produced the best, most long-lasting, organic solution than all the other surrenders. So it's not so much surrender. We're in that, we know. When people go, I don't know how to surrender, you've done it tons of fucking times. You surrender every night when you go to sleep. You do. You know, you're right there and suddenly the remote drops off your hand. You surrendered the remote. And so, but it's what's going to produce an effect here is what you surrender to. And the same thing with faith, if you don't mind. I want to give you my idea of what I think faith is. Yeah? So I believe faith is a force of big M mind. Yeah, it's totally neutral, but here it's going to manifest in the vehicle it's put in. So I've had an incredible example of it because I had a lot of faith in the thought system that I was seemingly saddled with, and it produced a lot of anxiety out of what's not happening. Yeah, because what's not happening cannot produce an effect. But what is happening can produce an effect through what's not happening, if there's faith in it, yeah? So we are miracle workers. I mean, there's the story of Lazarus being resurrected by Jesus, but Lazarus at least was alive. We're making shit out of nothing all day. We are. The mental state is tilling the fields of what's not happening, the future and the past. And it's producing, we're smoking its harvest all fucking day. So people who are flipping out right now, they're not responding to what's happening, they're reacting to what's not happening. And most people who are bummed out right now isn't bummed out because of the night, they're bummed out about last week or next week. You have to see where our allegiance is. You think you may have placed it somewhere, but it's been placed by something else, maybe somewhere else. Yeah. So, hey, that's it, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a question over here? Did you?
Oh, yeah.
You sort of answered it a little bit, just you were saying that you're in recovery, but isn't that part of self-actualizing? I mean, again, is that part of selfing?
No.
It's a reality.
Selfing is just an activity. It needs you to believe in it. Yeah? Selfing doesn't stop. Its product isn't produced. It needs you to produce its product. It can talk about you as a self all day, but you've got to believe it for it to seem to be so. It's not the selfing that produces anything, it's us that produces everything. Yeah? We're the dreaming, not the self. So no, AA is for the action figure. This action figure turns left badly. Yeah? I need guardrails or I'll be imprisoned. I will.
I believe you,
I could be totally thinking I'm spiritual. If I shot coke here, if I shot coke before this meeting, I would have passed the basket early. And fucking took the money and took off. Because you're mistaking the message for the messenger. If this messenger got a big shot of coke, who knows what it would fucking do. Really. So this action figure needs a way of life. See, I can get sober, but I can't stay sober. I need a way of life to keep me on the straight and narrow. I need God rails, G-O-D rails, yeah? And I also need principles because I need North Stars to follow. And AA is what the mind that's dreaming this place came up with for this action figure. And I'm happy as a clam, you know? It gives me the opportunity to be of service and hold space, and it brings this thing can only reach certain heights. And I'm telling you, a surrendered action figure is a very high form of action figurehood. Yeah? An action figure that holds space is very, very high form of action figurehood. Yeah? So that which is what I am is expressing the best way it can through this little, broken trumpet. Yeah? He's still squeezing out some nice notes. Yeah? So I don't see people want to have it this way or that way. To me, it's all inclusive. The action figure has its little realm, and then there's the context. I don't see any argument with it, to tell you the truth. People have a lot of trouble. They think, oh, if I'm not a self, why would I do the 12 steps? Well, because you'll probably be drunk as a non-self. 2 days. You'll be a self that wants to be a non-self, and you'll be a drunk self trying to be a non-self. I've seen it. I've seen people try to replace recovery with Buddhism, and they're drunk Buddhists. Seriously. They got it mixed up. We are so sure that we have a lot to do with it. You don't have anything to do with it. You have your own little destiny as an action figure. Yeah? I've heard that some of the wisest things who are from people who are actually totally insane. They had a moment of clarity, and they said something I never forgot. It's what's playing the notes, not the instrument. Yeah. So don't mistake the message for the messenger. The messenger's always going to fail you if you think it's the message. But I'm in not any illusion that the messenger is the message. Or if I was, I would never have come to as many meetings as I've come. Because every time I've showed up is because I never showed up. That's the only reason why this came about. Because I would have found fault, or there would be something I would feel so true about that would exile me from this possibility. But has nothing to do with me. I'm willing to show up, and then something moves through. And its batting average has been for fucking 19, 20-something years. I've come into meetings in all different kinds of conditions, circumstances, girlfriends leaving me, having no money, maybe have AIDS, everything like that. If I was willing to sit down, the water came through. What did it show me over time? The irrelevance of the yapping of the hose. I really, it's not all about me. My usefulness is the key. That's all. It's using me. Simply is that. So, yeah. Yep.
Just quickly, I want to say, when you spoke of the tendinitis, I experienced that in the past. It came and left. And honestly, I don't know why, but tonight, when you spoke of it, my left ear started ringing.
Great.
It hasn't stopped. And I'm just wondering if I should write you a check for that, or
Yes, you can. Yes. If you give me a big enough check, the left ear will start. I only gave you one now. I'm withholding the other one.
If you want the full orchestra, you gotta pay a little more.
That's right. Yes.
Hi, I want to thank you for what you shared with us tonight. I came on an act of faith in hopes of hearing something that would, I think, shed some light on my own issues. And you brought a lot of points up that I wasn't expecting to hear. Recovery, for one. It was through my friend that I had the faith. No doubt that she would lead me to a good place. I think that what was resonating with me when you mentioned faith is something hopeful yet unseen. And so a lot of what I've heard you say is thought process. And it confuses me because I am more of a feeling type person. So the faith, when I heard you mention that, kind of brought me back down to earth and was able to connect. I'm at a point of, you say we all surrender. I don't know if we surrender consciously or not. Each of us have our own circumstances, but I totally believe in faith. Right now, I am going by faith, blind faith. And I just want to tell you that means more to me to hear from you than any of the other stuff I've heard. Not that I'm not an intelligent person. I can kind of dissect and take it for what it is mentally and intellectually, but I am fed up with my own intellectual processing. And so...
So am I.
when
Okay.
So when I place my hand on my heart and just kind of release the thoughts that are so unmeaningful, they can go from A to Z and back and forth, the whole spectrum. I don't know what to believe anymore in those thoughts. All I can do is go by my faith. And my faith is what's holding me close to the truest self that I know, which is love. And this girl here has shown me so much love. So unconditionally. I am so glad to be here just to be able to express that also, because I think I'm congested, completely emotionally congested, and sort of, I want to say lost, but not quite. I have more hope and faith than being lost, but I don't like being in this physical world as I am today. I don't. I'm not saying, as I've been through chemical issues, I was raised in an imbalanced and dysfunctional family, like probably most of us here. But I just feel like the only hope for me is that little stroke of faith that just resonates with me, and I think we are all more alike than we are different. And so when we try to rationalize things, it just, it compounds problems for me, personally. The recovery lessons I've heard and been through meetings and that sort of thing, yes, I have empathy for other people and I am a very compassionate person, but I feel that if I don't hold on to that faith and pass that along, those hope, that hope, then I haven't fulfilled the purpose that I'm here for. And so I'm trying to to do that. At my age, I feel there's nothing really left as a legacy, except for, I do have 3 sons, and of course they're very important and dear to me. I just want to set a very, a better example as a parent, and my being to them and their interpretation of how I've been as a mom. Yes, I judge myself a lot for that. I don't know, to sum it up, I want to thank you for bringing up the word faith, because that's the one thing I needed to hear.
Great, thank you. Any more questions? The window's closing. Come. Hey? It's all a pleasure to be with you.
And with you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I want to thank Phoebe for setting all this up. This lovely lady back there. If you have any resentments about the situation, talk to Phoebe about it. I have nothing to do with it. And give me a few minutes to escape. Phoebe, come and get, no. Thank you so much for coming. And we have shirts if you want to have a beautiful shirt from Zenbitchslap.